Texas history scholars. How are you today? We will be making a study guide. This is a create your own study guide for Unit 2, Natural Texas and its people. I am going to use colored pens on here, but it really doesn't matter. However you want to write this, just as long as you get all of this information and you're ready to go for our test. So, we talked about 3 major concepts. We talked about history as a whole. How do we study history? What is history? Why is it valuable? What is the role of a historian? We also talked about Native Americans. And we especially big time talked about the 4 geographic regions of Texas. Miss Olson calls this a spider, but I call it a create your own study guide. So, let's get started. When it comes to history, we talked about the concept of eras. An era is a time period, and history is divided into eras. This helps us organize information about the past and it also helps us organize changes over time. Changes over time. We also talked about the concept of a primary and secondary source. Historians use these types of things to create a narrative about the past. So there's actually 3, but for the purposes of this class, there are 2 types of sources. There are primary sources, which means that whoever is writing the information or whatever it is that you're looking at was there and they witnessed history, sort of like Francis Scott Key and the Star-Spangled Banner. That's a witness account. They were there, they saw it with their own eyes. I'm putting a star next to this because it's very valuable information, but it's also not on your test specifically. Another type of source would be a secondary source. A secondary source is written by someone later, and they weren't there. They were not present. So I'm going to just put written at a later date. Wasn't there. They didn't actually see things occur. They've just been collecting information, and then they are writing about the information that they saw. Let's talk about Native Americans. There was a theme present in the era that we studied. So I'm going to put theme of era. When we talk about Native Americans, there is a theme that is true with all Native Americans, and that is that all of them adapted to their environment, every single one of them. And if they didn't adapt, then they died and we didn't learn about them. So all of the ones that we're learning about adapted to their environment. They figured out how to eat jelly from a cactus, or they figured out how to kill a buffalo with a spear. They figured out how to use alligator fat as mosquito repellent. All of them had to adapt. The ones that we're learning about adapted. Another vocabulary word that it's going to ask you about, which should be pretty easy because of our bluebonnet story, is the idea of a shaman, and it's going to ask you about the definition of a shaman. So if you don't know that, you might want to look at your notes to figure that out. All right, now we're going to go up to regions. There are 4 regions of Texas. The first is the coastal plains. We're going to go ahead and fill out this coastal plains stuff. The coastal plains has specific characteristics. So we can make a general statement about the coastal plains. In the coastal plains, there's lots of forest area. There's lots and lots and lots of trees. And those trees are there because there's lots of water. There's more rivers in that region than any other region. And because of the rivers in the coastal plains, this means cause, there is going to be more cities along rivers. So most of our major Texas cities are near rivers in the coastal plains. And the only major city that is not in the coastal plains, well, actually there's 2. Fort Worth is next to the Trinity River, and then El Paso is next to the Rio Grande River, the Rio Grande. So all of our cities are along major rivers, and most of the large cities are in the coastal plains. Some of the large cities that you'll need to know about, oh, this is getting messy. Let's go over here. Okay, some of the large cities in the coastal plains that you'll need to know is Dallas. It specifically asks that on your test. And Houston specifically asks that. And then there is Padre Island. And really, you don't need to know where Padre Island is, but the fact that it's an island tells you that it's in the coastal plains. There are no other islands in other regions. Like, all the islands that we have are in the coastal plains. Boom, that's important. Okie doke. Some of our Native Americans that live in the coastal plains, we're just going to do this, are the Caddo, Cohulitican, Karankawa, and the Attakapas. And some of these are nomadic, but this one and this one are nomadic. And that means that they're going to move around and look for food. And it specifically asked you on the test, what do these 2 tribes have in common? And it's that they are in the coastal plains and they're nomadic. Okay, let's talk about another region of Texas. Another region of Texas is the Great Plains. And I don't really have a lot to say about the Great Plains. Lubbock is there, so is Texas Tech. The Apache lived there, but those are not on your test, and this is a study guide for a test. So, if we were to do that, we could put a star next to it, meaning that, hey, that's not really something that we need to study. We have Lubbock up there and also Amarillo. That's like a lot of the panhandle, and then it kind of goes south. Alrighty. Next is the North Central Plains. And that's where we are. The North Central Plains, also not on your test. You need to know where that is, but you don't need to know that that's where Abilene is, and also Fort Worth. The idea that cities are created around rivers is one of the reasons why Abilene was recently made. It was made after all of our major cities like Austin, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Dallas, El Paso, because it's not near any water. It's not near any significant water. We have lakes. We were brought here because of the railroad. That's why Abilene exists. And the railroad is a modern invention. So that's why our city is a newer city. Our town, whatever you want to call it. Okay, let's talk about the mountains and basins. All right, the mountains and basins have a very arid climate. A characteristic would be that it's arid. Arid means dry. In the mountains and basins, we have a major thing called Big Bend. That's our only Texas national park. All of the other ones are state parks. National park. It's beautiful. It's up next to the Rio Grande River. We also had in this area the Tigua Native American tribe. And because it's arid, you like that? I connected both of them. Because it's arid, the Tigua people lived in adobe homes. So that is linked to both of these. Boom. Double important. That's it. Okay, well, good luck on your test and study this here study guide. And oh, wait, let me add something. Okay, the 4 regions, you need to know them and be able to locate them on a map. There's a map on your test. Okay, cool. Good luck.